If I were you, I wouldn't pull that trigger. The moment froze like glass in mid-shatter. A single sentence, spoken by a black maid with a calmness that didn't belong in a room about to explode, sliced through the glittering air of the ballroom. The man holding the pistol jerked in place. Startled, he was the one caught off guard. From across the room, Maya Williams stood just 15 feet away, her slate-gray apron crisp, her dark eyes sharp. Until now, she was just another figure in the background. But she had been watching him the entire evening quietly, intently, as he slithered through the crowd, never making eye contact, never drinking, always counting exits. She knew what he was before he even reached into his jacket. I said, Maya repeated, "Don't pull that trigger." The man stiffened, but quickly tried to cover. "What the hell are you talking about?" he barked, loud enough for everyone to hear. "I'm a guest, lady. You want to yell at someone? Try the guy who bumped into me earlier." He forced a laugh and looked around. "Y'all see this? She's accusing random people now? What is this maid's justice?" But no one laughed. The tension was thick. Eyes moved back and forth between Maya and the man with the gun. She stepped closer, slow and steady. Her voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. "You came in through the staff corridor," badge said AV consultant, "but you didn't have any equipment. No clipboard, no tools. Just a blazer that was a little too snug for you." He frowned, lips pressed into a tight line. "You took 2 tours around the ballroom," Maya continued. "Didn't take a single hors d'oeuvre, didn't shake a hand, didn't speak to a soul. You never looked anyone in the eye, but you kept looking at the exits clockwise, like a loop." He shifted uncomfortably. "You refused water. Adjusted your right ear every few minutes. Earpiece was too small. You held your right shoulder stiff, probably compensating for the weight of the weapon under the jacket. Shut your damn mouth," he growled, stepping forward. "And now you're standing exactly in the one corner that had a blind spot before the security cameras were reprogrammed," she added, eyes locked with his. "But you didn't know that changed 20 minutes ago. If you feel for the character, tap like to show your support. And comment where you are watching from. Someone nearby might be watching this with you too." The room was dead silent. He laughed again, but this time it cracked. "Oh, please. You watch too many movies. What do you think this is? Some kind of—" "I know what this is," Maya cut in, calm as steel. "It's a hit, and you're the guy sent to pull the trigger." His face twisted. "No more pretending. You just couldn't keep your mouth shut, could you?" he snapped. "Should have stayed in your lane, you little nobody." He raised the gun higher. "You don't belong here," he spat. "You think putting on a uniform and carrying trays makes you part of their world. You're just the help, always will be. And now you ruined something bigger than yourself." A murmur rose among the crowd. "Who is she? She's not even scared. Is she crazy? She's gonna get us all killed. She should know her place. She's just a maid." But Maya didn't hear them anymore. Her eyes were on the man's hand. The tension in his shoulders. The flicker of uncertainty in his stance. She inched forward, and in one breath, launched toward him. She was fast, but not fast enough. A blur slammed into her from behind. A heavy blow to the ribs, then the back of her skull. Her knees buckled as white flashed behind her eyes. She crumpled to the marble floor. Breath knocked from her lungs. The second man, shorter, leaner, in a waiter's uniform, stood over her with a stun baton, grinning. "Didn't see me, did you, hero?" he sneered. Her fingers twitched against the floor. Her vision blurred, blood pounded in her ears. And suddenly, everything dissolved. She was in Syria again. Heat, dust, screams in her comms, gunfire from the west window. She remembered shouting into her mic, "Hold position, I'm coming." But she was too far. By the time she reached the safe house, Ramirez was gone. Just a pair of dog tags in the silence that followed her home. She had failed him, failed her team, and when she looked in the mirror for weeks after, she didn't see an agent. She saw a ghost. "Maya." A voice snapped her back. Loud, urgent. "Maya." She blinked. Bright ballroom lights flooded back into view. She turned her head groggily toward the sound. Cameron Wade. He was standing now, hands partially raised, his face pale, strained with worry. And right behind him, too close, was the first gunman. The assassin had taken hold of Wade by the collar, pressing the muzzle of his pistol tightly against his temple. "Try anything else," the gunman growled, "and the billionaire dies." Gasps rippled across the crowd. Meanwhile, the second assailant had moved swiftly back across the floor, gun now trained on Arthur Blake, still cowering behind the buffet table. The guests were frozen. No one dared breathe. Maya, still on her knees, wiped the blood from her temple, teeth clenched. She slowly pushed herself upright. At that exact moment, Wade's eyes met hers. He was breathing hard, the gun cold against his temple, yet he wasn't looking at his attacker. He was looking at her. She didn't flinch. Her gaze was steady, unshaken, as if nothing had changed since she was just a background maid in his grand estate. And then she blinked once, slowly, deliberately. A signal. Wade blinked back. And in that fleeting second of unspoken understanding, he knew this woman wasn't just a maid. She was something else, something deadly, and something ready. "Who the hell are you?" Wade thought, heartbeat thudding. Maya's eyes flicked downward subtly toward the gun, then back up. A silent message. "Be ready to move." Wade shifted his weight slightly. Just enough. The assassin didn't notice his eyes still locked on Maya. "You all want to know why I'm here?" the gunman snarled. "You think this is just some lunatic with a grudge? Number. This is justice." Maya's fingers curled into fists. The man gestured toward Arthur Blake. "That man, your guest, sold technology meant to protect soldiers. He sold it to foreign black markets. People died. U.S. troops died. My brother died." Blake's face turned white. "You think this is about money?" "I don't care about money. I care about the lies that built this damn empire. I care about people like him who profit from blood, and people like you." He jabbed the gun into Wade's skull, "who throw parties to celebrate it." Wade flinched. "I didn't know." "Shut up!" the man screamed. Maya, now fully upright, steadied her breath. This was it. She looked once more at Wade. He gave a half nod, barely perceptible, and in the next instant, they moved. Wade dropped low, spinning out of the gunman's grip. In the same split second, Maya lunged and drove her heel hard into the attacker's wrist, a clean, practice strike. The gun flew across the marble floor. Guests screamed again. The second assailant turned, shocked. But the weapon was already gone, clattering beneath a table. The first gunman stumbled, furious, reaching for anything, but Maya was already between him and Wade. And now, for the first time all night, she was in control. Before either assailant could recover, a rush of security men, off-duty officers, and dinner guests in suits surged forward. Several tackled the second gunman, others pinned the first to the floor. Cuffs clicked, zip ties tightened, two masked faces hit the marble. Breathing hard, one of the guests turned to Maya. "Who the hell are you?" Another followed, voice sharper. "You're not just staff. No maid does that." Maya looked at the chaos around her, then met their gaze. "I used to be FBI," she said simply. "Until I lost someone. My partner. I walked away after that." A beat of silence. Then, police officers swept in, guns drawn, ordering everyone back. The two restrained attackers were hauled up, screaming and cursing, dragged through the front entrance as flashing lights painted the windows. Wade, still recovering his breath, walked over to Maya. "Thank you," he said, voice low, sincere. "You didn't just save my life. You stopped something much worse." "Ugh." Maya gave a slight nod, her face unreadable. Wade hesitated, then added, "I own a private security firm. Full spectrum protection. We could use someone like you. Someone who doesn't hesitate." Heads turned. The room, already stunned, went silent again. "She's a maid, Cameron," someone whispered behind him. "She's a warrior," Wade corrected. He turned back to Maya. "Come in tomorrow. Let's talk." By morning, headlines across the country exploded. Black Maid takes down assassins at billionaire's party. Female ex-fly agent exposed after heroic intervention. Who is Maya Williams, America's new symbol of silent courage? But Maya? She just sat quietly in the back of a patrol car, watching the night sky pass, her reflection in the window stronger than it had looked in years. For the first time in a long time, she didn't feel like a ghost anymore. The flashing lights outside the hotel still bled through the tall glass windows. When Maya slipped away from the glare of the cameras, she had no taste for the chaos that followed. To the press, the story was already written. A black maid turned hero, a billionaire spared, a conspiracy thwarted. But Maya knew better. It was never that clean. Inside, the ballroom had become a scene of nervous chatter and relief. Guests who minutes ago had screamed in terror now whispered in clusters, half glancing toward the doors where the assassins had been dragged away. Rosa found her in the corner, carrying a tray of untouched champagne flutes like nothing extraordinary had just occurred. "Nina, you can't just disappear after that," Rosa said, voice trembling with worry. "They're all asking for you, even the police chief." "I've had enough questions for one night," Maya replied, setting the tray down. "Let them ask someone else." But Cameron Wade wasn't letting it go. He cut through the clusters of guests with the force of a man used to commanding rooms. His tie was gone, his shirt collar undone, but his eyes burned with the adrenaline of survival. He stopped in front of Maya, lowering his voice so the gawking guests wouldn't hear. "You saved me," he said. "And Blake too. Whether he admits it or not, you kept this from being a bloodbath. I'm not letting you walk away without answers." "Zuh." Maya crossed her arms. "I gave you an answer. I used to be FBI. That's all you need." "No," Wade said, shaking his head. "That's the beginning. You don't move like someone who used to be anything. You move like someone who never stopped." She sighed, glancing at the guests, still watching, whispering, "This isn't the place." "Then come with me," he said. 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. Now." Against her better judgment, Maya followed him out of the ballroom and into a smaller lounge that had been reserved for VIPs. The room smelled faintly of leather and cigars. Wade closed the door behind them. "Sit," he said, though it came out more like a plea than a command. Maya remained standing. Wade rubbed his temples. "All right. I'll be blunt. Those men, whoever they were, they didn't pick tonight by accident. Blake is involved in something dirty, something dangerous, and now that you've exposed yourself, they'll be coming after you too." Her jaw tightened. "I'm used to that. You shouldn't have to be," he countered. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "I have resources, a private security division, staffed with some of the best. But none of them did what you did tonight. None of them kept calm while a gun was pressed to my head. That's why I want you on my team." Maya shook her head. "I told you. I left that world behind." Why?" Her silence stretched. Images she had fought to bury rose again. Ramirez's face in the dust. The sound of comms cutting out. The crushing weight of failure. "I lost someone," she finally said. "Someone I should have saved. And the Bureau decided I wasn't useful anymore. I won't make that mistake again. Because I won't give myself the chance." Wade studied her. "You didn't freeze tonight. You didn't fail. You stopped 2 trained killers with nothing but your eyes and your voice. That doesn't sound like someone broken." "It's not about me," she said sharply. "It's about what happens to the people around me." They held each other's gaze in silence until the muffled sound of footsteps approached. The door opened, and Detective Ramirez, broad-shouldered, weary-eyed, entered with a notepad in hand. "Miss Williams," he said, nodding politely. "You mind giving me a statement? The faster we clear the facts, the faster these people can go home." "No." Maya hesitated, then gave Wade one last look before following Ramirez back into the hallway. The questioning dragged on for nearly an hour. Maya stuck to the basics. She saw the signs, confronted the suspect, and reacted when necessary. She didn't mention the years of training that had sharpened her instincts. She didn't mention Syria, or the missions that had carved scars into her skin and deeper ones into her memory. When the detective finished, Wade was waiting again. "They're gone," he said, "loaded into the cruisers. The press will eat this up all week." "I don't care about the press." "Well, they care about you," Wade said. "They're already calling you the Maid of Manhattan." Maya groaned softly. "That's ridiculous." "That's branding," Wade said with a smirk. "And branding is power." She shot him a look that silenced his smile. Rosa appeared, placing a shawl over Maya's shoulders. "You did good tonight, Mija. Don't let anyone tell you different." Maya softened at Rosa's touch. But the weight in her chest remained. She had revealed too much. She had stepped out of the shadows she had carefully built around herself. And now there would be consequences. As the guests finally began to leave, Wade leaned closer. Think about what I said. My offer stands. You don't have to decide tonight. But don't shut the door. Maya didn't answer. Later, when the hotel was nearly empty, she slipped out the staff entrance and into the cool night. Sirens were still flashing down the block, and reporters huddled around the main entrance like vultures. She pulled her coat tighter and walked quickly toward the subway. The city's noise wrapped around her, car horns, distant laughter, the rhythmic clatter of trains below. For a moment, she let herself disappear into it, just another face among millions. But she could feel it, the eyes on her, the story already spreading faster than she could outrun it. By morning, the news would paint her as a hero. By nightfall, strangers would know her name. And somewhere in the shadows, the men behind tonight's attack would know it too. Maya paused at the top of the subway stairs, glancing back toward the skyline. This isn't over, she whispered. And for the first time in years, she felt the old fire flicker alive again, not the fire of rage, but of duty. The one she thought she had buried with Ramirez in the dust. The fire that told her she was not done fighting. Not yet. The morning after the gala, the city woke up to her name. Maid turns hero at Wade Gala. Black housekeeper foils assassins. From the kitchen to the headlines, who is Maya Williams? Every headline screamed it. Every news anchor recited it with breathless urgency. And every guest who had been in that glittering ballroom the night before told the story as if they themselves had been the ones staring down the barrel of a gun. Maya Williams sat in her small apartment in Harlem, the television muted. She didn't need to hear the words. The images alone were enough. Her face, grainy but clear, plastered across the screen. A still frame of her standing tall, eyes unshaken, while the gunman's hand trembled. She turned the television off. The kettle on her stove hissed, pulling her back to the present. She poured water into a chipped mug, the steam fogging her face. But even with tea warming her hands, she couldn't shake the cold knot in her stomach. She had spent 2 years building a quiet life, anonymous, forgettable, safe. One night had ripped all of it apart. A knock rattled her door. She froze. "Maya, it's Rosa," came the voice. Relieved, Maya opened the door. Rosa stood there with a shopping bag in hand, her eyes brimming with both pride and worry. "Nina, you're all over the news," Rosa said, stepping inside. "They won't stop talking about you. Half the people are calling you a hero. The other half," she hesitated, "they want to know why a maid moves like a soldier." Maya exhaled. "Because I was one." Rosa set the bag down. "You can't keep hiding it. They'll dig it up anyway." Maya sat at the table, staring into her tea. "I don't want them to know. The bureau was my past. That past killed Ramirez. It almost killed me. It's over." Rosa reached across the table, placing a hand over Maya's. "Maybe the past isn't finished with you." "Lau." Before Maya could respond, her phone buzzed. A private number. She almost let it go, but instinct told her otherwise. She answered. "Maya Williams?" The voice was clipped, professional. "This is Agent Torres, FBI. We need to talk." Her stomach tightened. "I'm not FBI anymore." "Maybe not. But you were one of ours, and last night you stepped into something bigger than you realize. The men you helped take down aren't just hired guns. They're connected, international. If you think it's over, you're wrong." The line went dead before she could answer. Maya sat in silence, the weight of the words pressing into her chest. Rosa watched her, worry deepening. "You see?" Rosa whispered. "The past doesn't stay buried." Later that afternoon, Maya found herself walking through the towering glass doors of Wade Enterprises. She had told herself she wouldn't go. She had promised she would walk away, but something inside her, duty, guilt, maybe even curiosity, pulled her there. The receptionist didn't even ask her name. "Mr. Wade is expecting you." She was led into a high-rise office overlooking Central Park. Cameron Wade stood near the window, his suit crisp, his expression unreadable. He turned as she entered, a half-smile tugging at his mouth. "I was wondering if you'd come," he said. "I shouldn't have," Maya replied. "Maybe, but you did." He gestured for her to sit. She remained standing. "You know what the news is saying?" he asked. "They're calling you fearless." Some are calling you reckless. Personally, I think they're both right. Maya crossed her arms. I didn't do it for headlines. I know. You did it because it's who you are. He leaned against the desk. And that's exactly why I want you here. Not as staff. As protection. As leadership in my security division. You have what money can't buy: instincts. The kind that save lives. Maya shook her head. I already told you. I left that life behind. Wade studied her carefully. Then answer me one question. Why didn't you freeze last night? Why didn't you run like everyone else? Her silence stretched. Then, almost against her will, she said quietly, because I've already lived through worse. Wade nodded, as if he'd been waiting for that answer. Then you know better than anyone that danger doesn't care whether you're ready. It finds you anyway. Last night proved that, and it won't be the last time. Before Maya could reply, the office door burst open. Lyle Turner, Wade's assistant, strode in with a tablet in hand. Sir, you need to see this, he said, ignoring Maya completely. Wade glanced at the screen, his face darkened. When? An hour ago. Midtown. Same signature. 2 more dead. Maya stepped closer. What happened? Lyle shot her a look. This doesn't concern you. She just saved your boss's life, Maya said sharply. It concerns me. Wade held up a hand. Show her. Lyle hesitated, then turned the screen. Grainy surveillance footage showed a black SUV pulling up to a private office building. 2 masked men stepped out, automatic weapons in hand. Minutes later, they left calmly, leaving chaos inside. Same crew? Maya asked. Same network, Wade said grimly. And they're not stopping. Maya studied the footage, her instincts kicking back to life. The way they moved, the precision, the cold exit. She recognized the patterns. They're professionals, she murmured, but sloppy enough to get caught on camera. That means they're sending a message. Wade nodded. And you know how to read it. Maya looked at him. He wasn't asking this time. He was certain. Her chest tightened. She thought of Ramirez again, of the promises she'd made to never put herself back in this position. But she also thought of last night, the faces in the crowd, the fear in their eyes, the relief when the gun was kicked away. She thought of Rosa's words. Maybe the past isn't finished with you. Finally, she exhaled. I'll help, but not because I work for you, because I need to know who sent them. A slow smile spread across Wade's face. Fair enough. For now, consider this a partnership. He extended his hand. She stared at it for a moment before shaking it. His grip was firm, steady. For the first time since she left the bureau, Maya felt the ground shift beneath her feet. Not back to who she had been. Not yet, but toward something new. As she left the office, reporters swarmed the lobby, their cameras flashing like lightning. Questions flew. Maya, how did you stop them? Are you joining Wade's team? Were you really FBI? She said nothing, pushing past them into the cold air outside. The city roared around her. Alive, chaotic, relentless, and somewhere within it, enemies were moving pieces across a board she had only just stepped back onto. Maya pulled her coat tighter and walked into the crowd. Her quiet life was over. The fight she had avoided for years had come looking for her. And this time, she wasn't running. By the time Maya returned to her apartment that evening, exhaustion had draped itself over her shoulders like a lead blanket. The day had been a blur of reporters outside her building, strangers recognizing her on the subway, and whispers that clung to her like a second skin. She had lived invisible for years. Now, she couldn't vanish if she tried. She locked the door behind her and leaned against it, closing her eyes. Silence filled the room. For a moment, she let herself imagine that none of it had happened, that she could wake up tomorrow, head to the Wade estate, and polish silver in the kitchen. But the image dissolved as quickly as it came. She wasn't that woman anymore. And maybe she never had been. The phone rang. Maya hesitated before answering. Williams, the voice said crisply. This is Agent Torres. You remember me? Maya's chest tightened. I remember the bureau. I don't remember you. I came in after you left, but I know your file. And I know what happened to Ramirez. The air in the room seemed to thicken. You don't get to say his name. No. Torres's voice softened, but only slightly. Fair. But you need to hear me. The men you faced at the gala aren't just small-time operators. They're contracted by a syndicate we've been tracking for years, an arms pipeline that stretches from New York to Istanbul. Blake's deals put him on their radar, and now they've moved into open action. That means they're desperate, and desperate men are dangerous. I'm not FBI anymore. No, Torres said, but they don't care. They've seen your face. They know you stopped them. That makes you a target, whether you like it or not. The line went dead. Maya lowered the phone slowly. She stared at it for a long time before setting it down on the counter. Rosa's words echoed in her mind again. Maybe the past isn't finished with you. Sleep didn't come easy that night. When it did, it was filled with ghosts, Ramirez's hand slipping out of hers. The burning of sandstorms in her lungs. The sound of gunfire tearing through plaster walls. She woke before dawn, drenched in sweat. The next morning, Cameron Wade's car waited outside her building. Black, sleek, windows tinted. He hadn't called ahead. He didn't need to. She slid into the back seat, the leather too soft for her taste. Wade was already inside, sipping coffee from a paper cup. You didn't answer my calls, he said. I didn't want to. And yet you're here. Maya sighed. What do you want from me, Wade? He studied her for a long moment. To be honest, I want someone I can trust. Last night made one thing clear. My security team isn't enough. They're trained, they're armed, but they're predictable. You're not. That's what scares people like those men, and that's what I need. I told you before, I don't do this anymore. Maybe not for them, Wade said, but you did it for me, and I think you'll do it again, because whether you admit it or not, it's who you are. Maya turned to look out the window as the city blurred by. He wasn't entirely wrong. The part of her that had stepped forward in that ballroom hadn't hesitated. That part had never died. They arrived at Wade Enterprises just after 8. Reporters swarmed the entrance, cameras flashing, voices calling Maya's name. Wade's security pushed them back, but their questions carried through the glass. Maya, are you joining Wade's security team? Were you really FBI? Do you consider yourself a hero? She kept her face expressionless as she walked past them. Inside, Wade led her to a private conference room. On the table were photographs, dossiers, and surveillance shots. These are the men you stopped, he said, spreading the photos out. But they're just soldiers. The man we want, the man funding this, is still out there, and he won't stop. Maya studied the photos. The faces were young, hardened, but not experienced enough to hide their tells. Hired hands, disposable. You think Blake is still the target? She asked. Wade nodded. He knows too much, and if they don't silence him, he could take a lot of people down with him, including me. Maya looked up sharply. You? Wade exhaled. Not directly. But my investments are tangled with his. If Blake falls, they'll come sniffing around my house too. That's why I can't afford another mistake. That's why I need you. Before Maya could answer, the door opened. Lyle Turner walked in, tablet in hand, eyes narrowing when he saw her. She doesn't belong in this room, Lyle snapped. She belongs wherever I say she belongs, Wade replied evenly. Lyle scoffed. She's a liability, a headline. The more we drag her into this, the more attention we bring. You want this company tied to a former FBI dropout with a tragic backstory? Maya's jaw tightened. She forced her voice to stay calm. Careful. Oh, what? Lyle sneered. You'll kick me like you did the gunman? Wade's voice cut through the tension. That's enough. Lyle, leave us. Lyle's glare lingered on Maya, but he obeyed, slamming the door behind him. Wade rubbed his temples. Ignore him. He doesn't see what I see. And what is that? Maya asked. A fighter who doesn't quit, Wade said, even when she thinks she already has. Maya looked down at the photos again. The fire inside her, the one she had tried so hard to bury, was beginning to burn hotter. You want my help? She said finally. Then I need access. Files, contacts, anything the Bureau has. And I need Blake, alone. If I'm going to figure out who's pulling the strings, I need to look him in the eye. Wade smiled faintly. That can be arranged. As Maya left the building later that morning, the city felt different. Every shadow seemed sharper. Every corner held a pair of eyes. She knew the syndicate wouldn't wait long. They had already tried once. They would try again. But this time, she wasn't just reacting. This time, she was hunting. The past was back, and Maya Williams was done running from it. The sun had barely risen when Maya found herself outside a discreet brownstone on the Upper East Side. The kind of place that screamed old money and quiet scandals. Wade's people had arranged it, as promised. Inside was Arthur Blake, the man who had been the target of the assassin's bullets and the reason she was now standing in the shadows again. Two plainclothes security men opened the door without a word, their eyes betraying a mix of recognition and wariness. They had seen the headlines. Everyone had. As she stepped in, the air smelled of stale coffee and fear. Blake sat at a wide oak table, his expensive suit rumpled, his eyes bloodshot. He looked nothing like the powerful contractor from the gala. He looked hunted. "You," he said, his voice rasping. "The maid. Ex-FBI," she corrected sharply. "And the only reason you're alive right now." Blake winced, running a hand down his face. "I didn't ask for a savior." "No," Maya said, pulling out a chair across from him. "But you got one, and now you're going to give me something in return, the truth." He laughed bitterly. "You think you can scare me into confessing? The Bureau tried that for years. They had nothing." "I'm not the Bureau," Maya said. Her voice dropped, cool and steady. "And I don't need to scare you. I just need you to know this. The men who came for you aren't finished. They'll try again. And next time, no one may be there to stop them." For the first time, Blake's bravado cracked. He leaned forward, lowering his voice. "They don't want me to testify. If I open my mouth, I take down more than just a syndicate. Senators, CEOs, generals' names you see on magazine covers. They're all eating from the same trough. And I was stupid enough to think I could get out clean." Maya studied him. "So you admit you were part of it?" His eyes flickered with shame. "I signed contracts I shouldn't have. Looked the other way when weapons went missing. It was profit. Plain and simple. But then I saw the reports. Soldiers dead. Kids in war zones with rifles they shouldn't even recognize. That's when I knew I couldn't keep quiet anymore." Maya's chest tightened. She thought of Ramirez, of the missions that had gone sideways because someone sold out. "And you waited until now to find a conscience?" Blake slammed his fist on the table. "You think it's that simple? You think walking away is free? The moment I told the wrong person I wanted out, I had a target on my back. You saw what happened. They'll kill anyone to keep me silent." Maya leaned back, crossing her arms. "Then help me make sure they fail. Who's pulling the strings? Who's giving the orders?" He shook his head violently. "If I say the name out loud, we're both dead before sundown." "Then write it," Maya pressed. "Give me something I can use." "Because I don't operate on fear, Blake. I operate on facts. And right now, all I see is a man who wants protection without paying the price of the truth." Blake stared at her for a long moment, his hands trembling. Finally, he pulled a pen from his pocket, scribbled a name on a scrap of paper, and slid it across the table. Maya didn't look at it immediately. She watched his face instead. The way his jaw clenched. The way sweat beaded on his forehead. Only when he pulled his hand away did she glance down. One name, clean, legible, familiar. Her blood ran cold. It wasn't a crime boss or a foreign arms dealer. It was someone she had once seen in bureau briefings, shaking hands with politicians, a man she had believed untouchable. Before she could speak, the sound of shattering glass cut through the room. A flash of light burst across the walls. The security men shouted, diving toward the windows. "Down," Maya barked, throwing herself over Blake as bullets ripped through the curtains. The attack lasted seconds but felt endless. When silence fell, the brownstone reeked of gunpowder and fear. One guard lay bleeding, the other shouting into his radio for backup. Maya pulled Blake to his feet, her voice firm. "They know you talked. We move now." As they rushed toward the back exit, Blake clutched her arm. "I told you, if that name gets out, save it," Maya snapped. "You've already put us both in the crosshairs." They spilled into the alley, tires screeching as a black SUV roared past the curb. Maya pushed Blake into cover just as the rear window rolled down and another muzzle appeared. A shot rang out, sparks dancing on the brick wall above her head. She fired back her weapon drawn so quickly it was as if she had never stopped carrying it. The SUV swerved, speeding off into the morning traffic. Blake panted, eyes wide. You still carry? Old habits, Maya said, shoving the gun back into her waistband. Now shut up and move. No. By the time they reached a safe car Wade had sent, Blake was shaking so hard he could barely speak. Maya shoved him inside and slid in after him. Wade's driver glanced back. Orders, Miss Williams? Take us to Wade. Now. The car peeled away, and Maya finally looked at the scrap of paper still clenched in her fist. The name glared up at her, sharp as a blade. She whispered it under her breath, a curse and a vow all at once. When they reached Wade's office, he was waiting, calm as ever, a glass of whiskey untouched on his desk. You look like hell, he said, eyeing Blake's disheveled state. They found us, Maya said flatly. She tossed the paper onto his desk. And this is why. Wade picked it up. His eyes narrowed. Well, he said slowly, that's going to make things interesting. Blake collapsed into a chair, his face pale. You don't understand. If that man knows I named him, he already knows, Maya cut in. That ambush wasn't random. It was a warning. Next time, it won't miss. Wade tapped the paper thoughtfully. Then we don't wait for next time. We go after him first. Maya leaned forward, her voice sharp. If you're serious about this, you need to understand something. This isn't about your company's reputation or protecting your investments. This is about dismantling a machine built on blood. And once we start, there's no turning back. Wade met her stare, unflinching. Then we start. Maya sat back, her pulse steady despite the storm building around them. She had sworn she would never come back to this world, but the world had come for her anyway. And now, with Ramirez's ghost still heavy on her shoulders, she knew there was only one way forward. Fight. As she rose from her seat, she felt the fire she had buried for years blaze higher. This wasn't just survival anymore. It was justice. And for the first time since the desert sands swallowed her past, Maya Williams was ready to face the war ahead. Rain fell over Manhattan like a curtain of gray, streaking the glass walls of Wade Enterprises. Inside the fortified conference room, the atmosphere was heavier than the storm outside. Maya stood with her arms crossed, staring at the whiteboard now littered with photographs and documents. The name Blake had scrawled the name of a man she once saw shaking hands with senators sat in bold letters at the center of it all. Richard Kane. Former defense strategist. Now a corporate magnate who held contracts with half the government. To the public, he was a philanthropist with a gleaming smile and handshakes for every photo op. But to Maya, he was something else entirely. The ghost behind too many dead bodies in too many forgotten corners of the world. Blake sat slumped at the far end of the table, pale and jittery. He hadn't stopped shaking since the attack. Wade sat across from Maya, composed but restless, his fingers tapping rhythmically against the glass. You understand what we're up against now, Maya said finally. Her voice cut through the silence like a blade. This isn't a petty syndicate. Kane has power, resources, and reach. If we move against him, we don't just poke the bear, we step into its den. And if we don't? Wade asked. Then he'll keep coming. Blake is the loose thread, and She paused, meeting Wade's eyes. I pulled at it. Wade gave a small, grim smile. Then let's unravel the whole damn sweater. Blake slammed his hands on the table, desperation spilling out. You don't get it. Kane isn't someone you fight. He's someone you survive. I shouldn't have written his name down. You should burn that paper and forget I said anything. Maya leaned forward, her gaze sharp. That's exactly what he counts on, fear. Silence. People like you letting him rot the system from the inside out. Well, I'm not afraid of him. Her words hung in the air. Wade studied her, something like admiration flickering behind his eyes. Neither am I, he said. Before Blake could argue again, the door burst open and Lyle Turner stormed in, tablet in hand. We've got a problem, he said, his tone as sharp as his tailored suit. What now? Wade asked. Lyle turned the screen toward them. A news feed was streaming live. The anchor's voice was tense. Anonymous sources have revealed that Arthur Blake, prominent defense contractor, is currently in protective custody after an alleged assassination attempt. Sources also claim a former FBI agent was involved in stopping the attackers. Questions are now being raised about her identity and her connection to Wade Enterprises. Maya's stomach tightened. They're leaking it, Lyle said. Kane's people are already moving to spin the narrative. By the end of the day, the press will be painting Maya as a rogue operative who endangered civilians at the gala. Blake buried his face in his hands. It's starting. This is how he destroys people. Maya forced herself to stay calm, though her pulse quickened. Then we get ahead of it. If Kane wants to make me the story, we make the truth louder than his lies. Wade stood, determination hardening his features. Agreed. We hold a press conference this afternoon. Maya stands with me, and we tell the world exactly what happened. Maya shook her head. That's a mistake. He wants me visible. Because the more visible I am, the bigger target I become. You think he won't send another team? This time in daylight? In front of cameras? She's right, Blake muttered. He doesn't care about collateral damage. He'll kill her and you, Wade. If it means protecting himself. No. For a long moment, silence pressed down on the room, broken only by the rain. Finally, Maya said, "We don't win this by standing in front of cameras. We win it by pulling the rug out from under him. Find the money, find the contracts, find the people he's bought. That's how you bring Kane down." Wade studied her, then slowly nodded. "So we go underground." Lyle's lips thinned. "And while you two play vigilantes, what happens to this company? To the board? To the investors who are already spooked?" "Let me worry about the company," Wade snapped. "Your job is to keep the building running. Maya's job is to keep me alive." Maya's expression didn't change, but inside she felt the weight of the words. She hadn't accepted a job yet. Not officially. But with each passing hour, it felt less like a choice and more like inevitability. By late afternoon, Maya slipped back into the city alone. Wade wanted her nearby, but she insisted on space. She needed the air, needed the noise of the streets to clear her head. Rain slicked off her hood as she walked through Times Square, neon lights glowing against puddles at her feet. Voices followed her, snippets of conversation from strangers reading headlines off their phones. "Did you hear about that maid who stopped the shooters?" "Not a maid, she used to be FBI, I think." Yeah, but they're saying she went rogue. Probably has a record." "I don't care, I'd want her on my side." Maya kept walking, her jaw tight. Fame was a noose. Every whisper, every camera flash, made her easier to track. And if Kane wanted her silenced, she had just become the loudest voice in the city. She ducked into a diner on the corner, the kind with cracked vinyl booths and the smell of burnt coffee in the air. Slipping into the back, she ordered nothing, just sat with her back to the wall. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. "You should have stayed in the kitchen," a distorted voice said. "Now you've made yourself the problem, and problems get solved." The line went dead. Maya's grip tightened on the phone. She stared at the reflection in the diner's window. Her own face. Steady but weary. Kane's people were already watching. Already reaching out. She couldn't run anymore. By the time she returned to Wade Enterprises that night, she had made her choice. She found him in his office, the city glowing behind him. "I'm in," she said simply. "But this isn't about working for your company. This is about finishing something I should have finished years ago." Wade rose slowly, relief flickering in his eyes. "Then we're in this together." Maya stepped closer, her voice low. "If we do this, there's no halfway. No boardroom politics, no PR spin. We go after Kane head on, and if you're not ready for that, walk away now." Wade didn't flinch. "I don't walk away." She studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "Good, because neither do I." As rain pounded against the windows, Maya felt the lines being drawn. Kane had resources, power, and fear on his side, but she had something else resolve, sharpened by loss, by guilt, by ghosts that refused to stay buried. For the first time in years, she wasn't just surviving. She was preparing for war. The following morning began not with the blare of sirens or the hum of reporters, but with silence. Maya sat alone in Wade's private security wing, a windowless room deep within his corporate tower. On the walls hung maps of New York, red pins marking sites of interest, Kane's suspected fronts, warehouses tied to shell companies, and government offices too well connected to touch. The silence pressed in, broken only by the low hum of the fluorescent lights overhead. Her hand traced the scar beneath her jawline as her eyes followed the web of strings connecting one photo to another. Each pin, each line, was a reminder of what Kane had built, a machine of corruption and death, grinding forward for decades. And she knew one truth with brutal certainty. If they wanted to tear that machine apart, they had to start with its gears, not its face. She exhaled slowly. Memory clawed at her chest. She could see Ramirez again, crouched beside her in that dim Syrian safe house, his voice steady, even as chaos erupted around them. "We finished the mission, Maya. No matter the cost." He had meant it, and he had paid it. A knock jolted her from the memory. Wade stepped in, dressed in a sharp charcoal suit, his tie perfectly knotted. He carried 2 coffees, setting one in front of her. "You didn't sleep," he said. "I don't," Maya replied, eyes still on the map. Wade studied her for a moment. "You know, I built this company because I got tired of other people deciding my fate. But now I realize Kane's been deciding it all along. He's in every contract, every deal. Even when I thought I was independent, I was in his shadow." Maya looked at him. "Then you understand what we're facing. If we go after Kane, you're not just risking money, you're risking your life. He won't hesitate to cut you down if you get in his way." Wade gave a small smile. "Maybe that's why I need you." Before Maya could respond, the door opened again. Lyle Turner entered, his tablet in hand, expression sour as ever. "Bad news. FBI's making noise. They want to pull Blake into federal custody. They're hinting that keeping him here is obstruction." Maya's jaw tightened. "Blake won't survive a transfer. Kane has people in every corridor of that system. The second he leaves this building, he's dead." Lyle scoffed. "And keeping him here makes us what? Saints? No, it makes us accomplices." "Nah, we're already accomplices," Maya shot back. "The second Wade stood next to me in that ballroom. The second the world saw us together, we became part of this fight. There's no stepping back now." For once, Wade didn't argue. He only said, "We keep Blake. If the Bureau wants him, they'll have to come through us." Lyle muttered something under his breath and stormed out. Maya rubbed her temples. "You realize he's right about one thing. Kane won't just come with bullets this time. He'll come with lawyers, politicians, and headlines. Guns are easy. Lies are harder." Wade leaned forward, his voice steady. "Then we hit him with truth before he hits us with lies." That afternoon, Maya went to see Blake again. He was holed up in a secure suite, pacing like a caged animal. The moment she entered, his eyes narrowed. "You shouldn't be here," he snapped. "Why? Afraid your new friends will see us together?" she asked. Blake's shoulders slumped. "You don't understand. Kane doesn't forgive. He doesn't forget. He'll strip me of everything and bury me before anyone can blink." Maya stepped closer, her voice low but firm. "You think you're the first man he's broken? Ramirez is dead because of him. Soldiers are dead. Families torn apart. You kept your silence while the machine kept turning. If you want redemption, this is your chance. You testify. You name names. You give me everything you've got." Blake shook his head violently. "You don't get it. The moment I say his name in public, I sign my death warrant." Maya leaned in, her eyes burning into his. "You already did. At that table yesterday, when you wrote his name down. There's no going back. You're marked whether you talk or not. So the only choice you have left is this: do you die a coward, or do you die making it count?" Blake flinched, her words slicing through his fear. He sank into a chair, burying his face in his hands. For the first time, she saw not arrogance but a man undone by guilt. When she left the suite, Rosa was waiting in the hallway, holding a bag of food she had smuggled past security. "You push too hard, mija," Rosa said softly. Maya sighed. "If I don't push, he breaks. And if he breaks, we all pay the price." Rosa reached up, cupping Maya's face like a mother might. "I see it in your eyes, the ghosts you carry. But you can't keep punishing yourself for the ones you lost. You can only fight for the ones still breathing." The words lingered as Maya returned to the security room. She traced the scar on her jaw again, thinking of Ramirez, of the oath she had once sworn and then abandoned. Rosa was right. The dead couldn't be saved, but the living, they still had a chance. That night, Maya and Wade sat across from each other, the city skyline glowing between them. Wade poured himself a drink, his voice quieter than usual. "You know," he said, "I watched you in that ballroom, standing against a man with a gun pointed at my head, and for a second, I thought you weren't afraid of anything." Maya's lips curved into a sad smile. "Fear's always there. The trick is not letting it own you." Wade raised his glass. "Then here's to not being owned." She didn't toast. She only met his eyes, steady and unflinching. "Tomorrow we start digging. Kane thinks he controls the game. Let's prove him wrong." "Nah." As Wade drank, Maya turned back to the window. Rain still streaked the glass, blurring the lights of the city. Somewhere out there, Kane was tightening his grip. But somewhere inside her, the fire that had been smothered for years burned hotter than ever. She whispered to herself, barely audible, "This time, I don't fail." And with that vow, Maya Williams stepped fully back into the life she had sworn she'd left behind, not as a maid, not as a ghost, but as a fighter reborn. The war with Kane had begun, and she was ready to face every scar it would carve. The storm that had blanketed the city the night before cleared by dawn, leaving Manhattan damp and gleaming under pale sunlight. But inside Wade Enterprises, the air was still heavy. The morning meeting in the secured boardroom wasn't about shareholders or quarterly reports. It was war council. Maya stood at the head of the table, her posture rigid, eyes scanning the room. Beside her sat Wade, composed as always. But she noticed the tension in his jaw. Across from them, Lyle Turner tapped irritably at his tablet, clearly unimpressed by her presence. And at the far corner sat Arthur Blake, looking like a ghost in a tailored suit, his fingers twitching as if they couldn't stop reliving the sound of bullets. Maya broke the silence. "Kane is the architect of this network. He hides behind layers of contractors, politicians, and corporations. But every weapon that vanishes, every shipment that turns up in a war zone, traces back to him. If we want to bring him down, we need evidence, real, undeniable evidence. Testimony isn't enough. We need the paper trail." Blake scoffed. "You think I haven't tried? Every ledger, every contract was scrubbed clean. Kane doesn't leave crumbs. Everyone leaves something," Maya replied firmly. "A shell company, a blind account, a transaction at the wrong hour. We find one thread, and we pull until the whole thing unravels." Lyle leaned back in his chair, smirking. "Sounds heroic, but what you're describing takes months, maybe years. Meanwhile, Kane destroys reputations overnight. He's already turned the press against you, Williams. By next week, the headlines will say you staged the attack yourself." Wade cut in, his voice sharp. "Enough, Lyle. Maya's right. Evidence is our weapon. We're not going to beat Kane with press releases or boardroom debates. We beat him by proving what he islanded." Maya glanced at Wade, surprised by the conviction in his tone. She had expected resistance, but he was all in now. Perhaps too far in to back out. Blake shifted uncomfortably. "If I help you, I need guarantees. Witness protection, relocation, new identity. Protection you'll only get if you cooperate fully," Maya interrupted. "No more half-truths, no more bargaining. If we're risking our lives, you risk yours too." Blake looked away, ashamed but silent. Wade leaned forward. "So where do we start?" Maya pointed at the map on the screen. "Kane's operations run through dozens of shell companies. But there's one that doesn't fit the pattern: Iron Shield Logistics. It's new, barely 3 years old, but suddenly they're handling shipments worth billions. And their warehouse in Brooklyn? It's supposedly storing farm equipment, except it has enough security to guard Fort Knox." Wade frowned. "You think that's the hub?" "I think that's where the paper trail begins," Maya said. Blake rubbed his temples. "I know Iron Shield. Kane uses it as a buffer. If you dig there, you'll find something, but you'll also be painting a target the size of Manhattan on your back." Maya's lips pressed into a thin line. "Then we'll have to move faster than they can aim." Later that afternoon, Maya prepared alone in the security wing. She strapped on her holster, checked her weapon, slipped on gloves. The familiar ritual calmed her, though it also reminded her of everything she had sworn she'd left behind. Each buckle and strap whispered of nights in hostile territory, of missions where the line between hunter and hunted blurred. She caught her reflection in the mirror, hard eyes, scar beneath her jawline, posture coiled for action. She no longer looked like the maid who polished silver trays. She looked like the woman she had been before Ramirez fell, and that terrified her more than Kane's men ever could. The door opened, and Wade stepped inside. He wasn't in a suit this time. Dark jacket, practical boots, less billionaire, more man preparing to step into danger. "You're coming with me?" Maya asked, raising an eyebrow. He smirked faintly. "You think I'm going to let you walk into Kane's den alone? I've survived boardrooms full of wolves. I can survive this." "Die." "This isn't a boardroom," Maya warned. "I know, but if I want to understand the world Kane controls, I need to see it with my own eyes." Maya studied him for a moment. Against her instincts, she nodded. "Fine. But you follow my lead. You do exactly what I say, when I say it. One mistake, and we're both dead." He met her gaze without flinching. Understood. By nightfall, they were parked across from the Iron Shield warehouse in a nondescript van. Rain slicked the streets again, glinting off the razor wire that crowned the perimeter fence. Floodlights swept the yard, and guards with rifles paced in pairs. "This isn't farm equipment storage," Wade muttered. "No," Maya agreed, watching through binoculars. "This is a fortress, which means whatever's inside is worth protecting." "Zuber." She outlined the plan with crisp efficiency. They'd breach through a blind spot in the eastern fence, bypass the cameras with a jammer she'd brought, and slip inside through a loading bay. Quick, silent, in and out. Wade listened carefully, no protest in his expression. He wasn't a soldier, but he was willing. That counted for something. Minutes later, they moved. Maya's body flowed with muscle memory, swift, precise, low to the ground. Wade followed, less graceful, but determined. The jammer hissed softly as she activated it, and the nearest camera blinked into static. They slipped inside. The warehouse was vast, filled with stacked crates and the faint hum of generators. Maya's flashlight cut across labels: agricultural machinery, seed drills, fertilizer distributors. But when she pried open a crate, her stomach hardened. Inside were rifles, hundreds of them, military grade. Wade's eyes widened. "God, this is the evidence we need," Maya whispered. "Photos, serial numbers, anything that links back to Kane. With this, he's finished." But before she could snap a single picture, a voice echoed from the catwalk above. "Well, well," the man drawled. "The maid and the billionaire. Kane said you'd come sniffing around." Floodlights blazed on, blinding them. Dozens of armed men stepped out from behind the crates, rifles raised. Wade froze. Maya instinctively stepped in front of him, gun raised, though she knew the odds. The figure on the catwalk leaned over the railing, grinning. Scarred face, sharp eyes. "Name's Voss. Kane's fixer. He figured curiosity would drag you here, so he left a welcome party." Maya steadied her aim. "If you were here to kill us, we'd already be dead." Voss chuckled. "Smart. No. Kane doesn't want you dead. Not yet. He wants you broken. He wants the city to see the hero maid and her billionaire boss exposed as frauds caught red-handed trespassing, maybe even planting evidence." "Oh," Wade's jaw tightened. "He'll spin this into a scandal." "Exactly," Voss said, spreading his arms. "And when the cameras roll, you'll be the villains, not Kane." Maya's finger hovered near the trigger, her mind racing. Outnumbered, surrounded, but not defeated. She had been in worse corners before, and she had clawed her way out. She lowered her voice, steady as steel. "Then I guess we'll just have to rewrite the script." Wade glanced at her, understanding in his eyes. He had seen it before, the moment in the ballroom when she faced a gun without fear, and now, as rifles glinted in every direction, he knew she was about to do it again. Maya Williams took one breath, the fire of old battles surging back through her veins. The war with Kane had truly begun, and she would not fall quietly into his trap. The floodlight seared into Maya's eyes, but she didn't flinch. She stood tall, gun steady, her body angled to shield Wade behind her. Around them, the metallic clicks of rifles being leveled echoed off the steel walls of the warehouse. The air smelled of oil, gunpowder, and rain leaking in through the high rafters. On the catwalk above, Voss grinned like a predator who had cornered his prey. "Drop the weapon, Williams. Don't make me decorate the floor with you tonight. Kane doesn't want your corpse just yet." But accidents do happen. Maya's mind worked furiously. She counted at least 15 men visible, maybe more hidden in the shadows. Outgunned, outnumbered, boxed in, but not outsmarted. "You think Kane can bury this?" she called back, her voice steady, carrying across the warehouse. "We've already seen the crates. Guns where there should be tractors. Doesn't matter what he spins, these pictures will burn him." Voss chuckled, tapping the rail with his fingers. "Pictures? You really think we let you waltz in here without scrambling your toys? That little jammer in your pocket, it fried your camera too. You're walking out with nothing." Wade stiffened behind her. "He's bluffing," he muttered. Maya's lips curved into the faintest smile. "Number, he's trying to make us believe we've already lost. Which means he's afraid we haven't." Voss's grin faltered for a fraction of a second. Then he gestured sharply. "Take them." The men advanced, rifles raised. Maya moved fast. She shoved Wade toward the nearest stack of crates, firing 2 quick shots. The noise thundered through the cavernous space. A guard went down, another stumbled back. Chaos erupted. "Move, Wade!" she shouted, diving behind cover as bullets tore into the wood around them. Splinters rained down like hail. Wade scrambled clumsily, ducking behind a forklift. His heart pounded in his throat. This was no boardroom debate, this was survival, raw and terrifying. He watched Maya, the way she moved with impossible precision. Her body low and controlled, firing with calm bursts instead of panicked sprays. She wasn't just fighting, she was orchestrating. 2 men flanked left. Maya anticipated it, rolling out and catching one with a clean shot to the shoulder. The second lunged closer, swinging his rifle like a club. She met him head-on, disarming him with a brutal twist, then slammed the butt of the weapon into his jaw. He collapsed with a groan. "Wade, cover me," she barked. "I don't even—" He spotted a pistol on the ground, dropped by one of the fallen guards. His hand shook as he picked it up, but when another man closed in, Wade squeezed the trigger. The bullet ricocheted off a crate, but the noise alone made the attacker falter long enough for Maya to finish the job. Above them, Voss snarled, "Enough games, kill them." Gunfire intensified, echoing like thunder in the metal cavern. Wade ducked lower, sweat dripping down his temple. Maya slid beside him, reloading with swift efficiency. "You all right?" she asked, eyes scanning. "I'm still breathing," he muttered, clutching the pistol too tightly. "Good. Keep it that way." She peeked over the crates, mapping out their chances. Too many. Not enough cover. But she noticed something. The overhead catwalk was supported by thick steel beams. And just above Voss, a crane system hung suspended, chains dangling, heavy pallets swaying slightly. Maya's mind flashed with calculation. Risky. But risk was all they had left. "See that crane?" she asked Wade, pointing subtly. He followed her gaze. "What about it? When I say go, you shoot at the chain control. Don't think, just do it." He swallowed hard. "And you?" "I'll handle the rest." She waited. Heartbeats pounded in her ears, bullets slicing the air. Then she whispered, "Now." "No." Wade popped up, firing wildly toward the control box above. Sparks erupted as a bullet struck metal. The chains rattled violently. The pallet suspended above the catwalk lurched, then gave way with a deafening crash. Voss barely had time to curse before the catwalk shook beneath him, tilting. Guards scrambled, some tumbling down. Dust and debris filled the air. Maya seized the moment. She sprinted from cover, weaving through the chaos with lethal precision. One guard tried to block her path. She dropped him with a sharp elbow and a shot to the knee. Another swung a blade she twisted, sending him sprawling into the debris. She reached the stairs to the catwalk just as Voss regained his footing. He leveled his pistol at her, snarling, "You're a damn pest, Williams." She fired first. His gun spun from his hand, clattering to the ground. but instead of fleeing, he laughed. You really think this ends with me? Kane's already 10 moves ahead. You'll never touch him. Maya closed the distance in a heartbeat, pressing her gun to his chest. Then I'll break every move until I do. For a moment, they stared at each other, predator and predator. Fire meeting fire. Then Voss smirked again. You don't have the guts. Maya didn't pull the trigger. Instead, she struck him across the face with her pistol, hard enough to drop him. He slumped unconscious against the railing. Down below, Wade was staring at her in disbelief. The gun in his hand shook, his breath ragged. The warehouse was silent now except for the groans of injured men and the distant hum of the city outside. Maya descended the stairs, grabbing Wade's arm. We don't have long. Kane will know his trap failed. Wade glanced back at the crates, the mountains of weapons. We can't just leave this. She nodded. We won't. But first, we live. They slipped into the night, sirens already wailing in the distance. By the time law enforcement stormed the warehouse, Maya and Wade were gone, their presence reduced to scattered shell casings and unconscious men. In the back of the van speeding away, Wade finally spoke. You could have killed him. Voss. Why didn't you? Maya stared out the rain-streaked window. Because Kane wants me to. He wants me to become like him. I won't give him that victory. Silence stretched between them. Wade finally exhaled, voice heavy. You're not like him. You never could be. Maya didn't answer. Deep down, she wasn't so sure. She felt Ramirez's ghost again, whispering of missions gone wrong, of the cost of choices made in shadows. But she pushed it down. She couldn't afford doubts now. Kane knew she was coming, and that was fine, because she was, and when she reached him, she wouldn't stop until the machine he built was nothing but rubble. The city was alive with its usual noise horns, shouts, the rhythm of footsteps echoing against concrete, but to Maya, it all sounded distant, like she was walking through a dream. Her body moved, but her mind was still in the warehouse, still hearing the crack of gunfire, still smelling the metallic tang of blood. She had fought her way through ambushes before, but something about this one gnawed at her deeper. Kane hadn't just wanted her dead, he wanted her broken, and that was worse. Cameron Wade walked beside her as they crossed into the lobby of his tower. His jacket was torn from their escape, his knuckles bruised from clutching the pistol too tight. But his voice was steady. We got out, he said, as if trying to convince them both. That's what matters. No, Maya muttered. What matters is what we left behind. Those crates, those weapons, they were the proof we needed. And now they're probably gone, swept away before the police even touched them. Wade pressed the button for the private elevator. Then we go back. Not physically, but strategically. If Kane moved the shipments there, he'll move them again. There will be records. Maya shook her head. He's too careful. That warehouse was bait. He wanted us to bite so he could turn us into a headline. The elevator doors closed around them, and for a brief moment, the world outside fell silent. Wade studied her, his eyes sharper than usual. You've been in these traps before. What would you do if you were him? Her chest tightened. She didn't want to answer, but the old agent inside her couldn't help it. I'd let the rats escape, just like he did tonight. Then I'd let the story rot them from the inside. I'd flood the press with corrupt billionaire and rogue ex-agent caught in arms scandal. And once the public turned, the cleanup would be easy. Wade gave a humorless laugh. So we're rats now. She didn't respond. The elevator chimed, doors opening into the top floor suite. Waiting inside was Lyle Turner, his expression sourer than usual. He held a tablet with a news feed streaming across it. You should both see this, he said coldly. On the screen, a breaking news banner scrolled across the bottom. FBI agent and billionaire linked to illegal arms site. Grainy photos obviously pulled from warehouse security cameras flashed on screen. One showed Maya with her gun raised. Another caught Wade crouched behind the crates. The narrative was already spun. Intruders caught in the act, playing hero but planting evidence to cover their own crimes. Maya's jaw clenched. He moved faster than I thought. Lyle's lips curled into a smug half-smile. I warned you. And now? Kane doesn't even need to kill you. The world will do it for him. Enough, Wade snapped. We'll control the narrative. Call a press conference. No, Maya interrupted sharply. That's what he wants. You stand in front of cameras now, and you're finished. We need to fight him where he doesn't expect it, quietly. Surgically. Lyle crossed his arms. Or maybe we need to cut ties, let her take the fall. After all, it's her past that dragged us here. Wade turned on him, his voice like steel. She saved my life. Twice. You think I'm going to throw her to the wolves because it's convenient? The two men glared at each other, the air thick with unspoken fury. Maya stepped between them. Stop. Kane doesn't need us fighting each other. He's already winning if we do. She turned to Wade. Let him leak his lies. The truth is still out there. Somewhere in Iron Shield's records. Somewhere in Kane's accounts. We find it before he erases it. Wade exhaled, running a hand through his hair. All right, but how? Maya's mind turned back to the man she had knocked unconscious on the catwalk, Voss. Kane's fixer. She had left him alive. And that meant leverage. Voss knows where the shipments go. He knows Kane's weak spots. If we get to him before Kane does, we'll have what we need. And if Kane already has him? Wade asked. Maya's eyes hardened. Then we make sure he regrets underestimating me. Hours later, Maya stood alone in her apartment, packing what little she had left of her old life. A change of clothes, a worn photograph of her and Ramirez, a field knife that had saved her more times than she could count. She strapped her gun to her side and looked in the mirror one last time. The woman staring back wasn't a maid anymore. Wasn't just an ex-agent. She was someone standing on the fault line of war. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Voss is alive. East River Docks. Midnight. Her pulse quickened. Kane was baiting her again, she knew it. But bait or not, she had to take it. Voss was the thread that could unravel everything. At midnight, the docks were shrouded in fog, the air thick with salt and oil. Maya moved like a shadow, her footsteps silent on the wet planks. Wade followed close behind, his breath visible in the chill air. You sure about this? He whispered. No, she replied honestly, but we don't get choices anymore. They reached the warehouse at the far end of the pier. A single bulb flickered above the entrance. Inside, the vast space was empty except for one figure tied to a chair under the light. Voss. His face was bruised, his clothes torn, but his eyes still burned with defiance. Maya approached cautiously. You're alive. Barely, Voss croaked. Kane doesn't forgive failure. He left me here as a message. To me, Maya said flatly. Voss gave a broken laugh. You always were sharp. Yeah, to you. He wants you to see what happens to anyone who crosses him. Zero. Maya crouched in front of him, her voice low and cutting. Then give me a way to cross him deeper. Where are the records? Where does Iron Shield keep its files? Voss's eyes darted toward Wade. You trust him? The billionaire? Men like him built Kane's empire. Wade bristled, but Maya didn't look away. Answer me. Voss coughed, then whispered. Downtown, a server farm under one of his shell offices. Locked tighter than Fort Knox, but it's there. Everything you need. You get inside, you can burn him. Before Maya could press further, the sound of footsteps echoed outside. Dozens of them. She froze. Wade's eyes widened. Voss's laugh turned hollow. And now the trap closes. The doors burst open. Kane's men flooded in, rifles raised, voices barking orders. Maya yanked her pistol free, dragging Wade behind a stack of crates as bullets shattered the light above Voss. He screamed, then fell silent. Maya's teeth clenched as she returned fire, the old instincts snapping into place. This wasn't an ambush she could run from. This was a fault line cracking wide open, and everything was about to collapse. Stay low, she barked to Wade, firing 3 clean shots. 2 men dropped, the third staggered. Wade's voice shook. We'll never get out. Maya's eyes burned with fire as she reloaded. Then we make a hole big enough to walk through. Nah. And with that, she surged forward into the storm of gunfire, determined not to let Kane's shadow consume them. Not tonight. Not ever. The gunfire was deafening, echoing off the steel walls of the dockside warehouse. Bullets ripped through crates, splintering wood and filling the air with dust and salt. Maya moved like a shadow, weaving between cover with the lethal precision of muscle memory. Every motion reminded her that the years she had tried to bury hadn't dulled her edge, they had only sharpened it. Wade crouched behind a rusting container, clutching the pistol she had shoved into his hand. His breath came hard and fast. He wasn't a soldier. He knew it, and so did Maya. But when she glanced back at him, his jaw was set, and his eyes held something steadier than fear resolve. "Stay down unless you have a shot," she barked over the chaos. He nodded, gripping the gun tighter. Across the warehouse, Kane's men advanced, rifles spitting fire. They moved with military efficiency, two covering while two pushed forward, leapfrogging through the shadows. These weren't street thugs. These were professionals. Maya's stomach tightened. Kane was escalating. She popped up from cover, firing two clean shots. One man crumpled, clutching his leg. Another fell with a grunt. But their replacements kept coming. The sheer numbers threatened to overwhelm. And then she remembered Voss. Her eyes darted to the chair in the center of the warehouse. He was slumped, blood dripping from a fresh wound across his temple. But his chest still moved barely. He was alive. For now. "Cover me," she shouted to Wade. "What?" His voice cracked. "Just do it." Before he could argue, she was already sprinting. Wade swallowed hard, raised his pistol, and fired at the nearest shadow. He missed, but the shot was enough to make the man duck back. For a precious heartbeat, it gave Maya the opening she needed. She slid across the floor, grabbing the chair Voss was tied to. A bullet grazed her shoulder, searing pain ripping through her. But she gritted her teeth and dragged him behind a stack of crates. Voss coughed, blood spraying his chin. "You should have left me. Not my style," Maya hissed, pulling a knife from her boot and sawing through the ropes around his wrists. "You want redemption? Earn it. Where's the server farm?" His eyes flickered, clouded with pain. "Midtown. Underground. Under a law firm Kane owns. Red doors. Code 7154. Maya absorbed it in a second. She didn't know if she'd get another chance to hear it again. Another barrage of bullets tore into the crates. She shielded Voss with her body, firing blind around the corner. "Wade. We need an exit." Wade peeked out from his cover, heart hammering. He spotted a side door half hidden by shadows, a service entrance leading to the pier. "There," he yelled. Maya's mind raced. Getting Voss out alive would slow them down, but leaving him meant losing the one thread to Kane's empire. She made the call. "Move toward that door," she ordered, dragging Voss up with her. Wade ran first, ducking low, firing clumsily behind him as he went. Maya followed, half carrying, half dragging Voss. Bullets chased them, sparks flying off the steel beams above. They burst through the side door and onto the pier. The night air hit like ice, fog curling around the wooden planks. The East River lapped dark and merciless below. Ahead, an empty truck sat abandoned, its back doors ajar. "This way," Maya pushed Wade forward, shoving Voss into his arms. She turned, firing again, forcing Kane's men to hesitate as they spilled out of the warehouse. Wade dragged Voss toward the truck. Maya backed up, her last magazine slipping into her pistol with a metallic click. She could hear sirens in the distance now, faint but growing louder. Someone had called it in. Maybe luck was on their side for once. The first gunman stepped onto the pier. Maya shot him in the chest. Another rushed forward. She clipped his thigh, but her rounds were running thin. One magazine, maybe 6 bullets left. "Maya, hurry!" Wade shouted from the truck. She darted back, leaping inside just as the first wave of reinforcements stormed the pier. Wade slammed the doors shut. The echo of fists pounding against the steel rang in their ears. The sirens grew louder. Blue and red lights began to flash through the fog. Kane's men cursed, retreating like shadows melting back into the night. They weren't afraid of police, they had half the system in their pocket, but they weren't interested in a shootout on camera. Not tonight. Inside the truck, silence fell heavy. Maya slumped against the wall, her shoulder burning from the graze. Wade sat across from her, chest heaving, pistol still clutched in white-knuckled hands. Between them, Voss groaned, his head lolling to one side. "You're insane," Wade said finally, voice breaking the quiet. "Dragging him out like that. You could have died." Maya wiped blood from her temple. "He's our only lead. Without him, we have nothing but Kane's lies." Wade stared at her, searching her face. "You keep throwing yourself into the fire like you don't care if you burn." Her eyes hardened. "I've already burned. This is just the ash." The truck jolted as police vehicles screeched onto the pier. Shouts filled the night, flashlights cutting through the fog. Maya and Wade exchanged a look. This was another danger. If the wrong officers were here, Kane would know where to find them before sunrise. The doors swung open, blinding light flooding inside. "Hands where I can see them," a voice barked. Maya raised her pistol slowly, then set it on the floor. Wade lifted his hands. Two uniformed officers yanked them out, weapons trained on their chests. Another officer pulled Voss out, cuffing his hands despite his limp state. "Wait," Maya protested. "He needs medical attention." "Save it," the officer snapped. "You're both coming in for questioning." Maya's instinct screamed. This wasn't a clean pickup. The timing was too neat. The response too quick. And when she caught one of the officers exchanging a glance with another, she knew Kane already had his claws in this. She leaned close to Wade as they were shoved toward a squad car. "Don't say a word, not one, until we know whose side they're on." He nodded grimly. As the doors slammed and the car pulled away from the docks, Maya stared out the window at the river disappearing behind them. The night had been fire and blood. And though they had survived, it was clear Kane wasn't trying to kill her outright anymore. He was tightening the net, one circle at a time, until she and Wade had nowhere left to run. Her reflection in the glass was pale, her jaw set. She whispered under her breath, a vow to herself and to Ramirez's ghost. "You won't bury me. Not this time. I'll bury you first." The city lights blurred past, the squad car speeding into the darkness. Somewhere ahead, the next battle waited, and Maya Williams was ready to face it no matter how much blood it demanded. The fluorescent lights in the precinct hummed faintly, casting everything in a pale, washed-out glow. Maya sat handcuffed to a steel table, her reflection wavering on its scratched surface. The room smelled faintly of coffee gone stale and disinfectant. Outside the door, footsteps passed occasionally, muffled voices rising and falling. She counted them, mapping patterns the way she once did in foreign safe houses. Wade sat opposite her, his jacket crumpled, his tie askew. He had never looked more out of place, a billionaire confined to a chair under the same harsh lights as criminals. He ran a hand down his face and muttered, "This is insane. We should be the ones giving statements, not treated like suspects." Maya didn't look up. "That's the point. Keep us on the defensive. Kane doesn't need bullets tonight. He just needs doubt." The door opened with a metallic squeal. A detective walked in, tall, sharp jaw, gray streaks in his hair. His badge glinted at his hip. "Detective Monroe," he introduced curtly, sliding into the chair across from Maya. He set a thin file on the table and opened it deliberately. "You've had a busy week, Miss Williams. First the gala incident, now the docks. Former FBI, now working private security for Cameron Wade, except you're showing up at crime scenes instead of preventing them. Makes me wonder." Maya's gaze locked on him, steady and unblinking. "Wonder about what?" He tapped a grainy photo clipped to the file, her silhouette in the warehouse, pistol raised. "Wonder if you're protecting Mr. Wade, or cleaning up after him." Wade bristled. "That's absurd. She saved lives, twice. If you want someone to blame, blame the men with rifles pointed at us." Monroe's eyes flicked toward Wade, unimpressed. "Mr. Wade, you're a businessman. You live in a world where money buries problems. But this?" He tapped the photo again. "This is different. Illegal arms shipments, dead bodies, missing evidence. And somehow, you're always in the middle of it." Maya leaned forward, her voice low and cutting. "You're looking in the wrong direction. The warehouse wasn't farm equipment. It was full of military-grade rifles. Kane's rifles. And if you've got half a spine, you'll check the crates before his people make them disappear." Monroe's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. That single flicker was enough for Maya, he knew. Whether he'd admit it or not, he already knew Kane's fingerprints were on this. But instead of responding, Monroe closed the file. You'll both be processed, then released once we're satisfied. Until then, don't leave the building. No. He stood, knocking twice on the door before leaving. The lock clicked behind him. Wade exhaled sharply. He doesn't believe us. Maya shook her head. Number worse he does, but he's afraid to say it. Kane's reach is longer than you think. Silence stretched. Wade rubbed his temples, his voice dropping. Do you ever wonder if we're in over our heads? Kane isn't just a man. He's a machine. He has the press, the police, half the government in his pocket. We're two people against all of that. Maya finally looked at him, her eyes steady. I've been outnumbered before. Numbers don't win wars. Resolve does. He studied her, as if searching for the cracks in her armor. And what happens if your resolve gets me killed? Her jaw tightened. Then it means I failed again, and I don't fail twice. Before Wade could respond, the door opened again, this time with a different figure stepping inside. Agent Torres. His suit was wrinkled, his tie loose, but his eyes were sharp, scanning the room with calculated precision. Well, this is cozy, he said, pulling up a chair. Williams Wade, didn't expect to find you two sitting and holding like common thugs. Maya's lips pressed into a thin line. What do you want, Torres? He smirked. What I always wanted, Kane. And it seems you're the only one dumb enough or brave enough to poke the hornet's nest directly. I need what you've got. Wade leaned forward. We don't have much. Just a name, a fixer, and now a target painted on our backs. Torres's expression sobered. That fixer, Voss, he's the key. But word is, he didn't make it out of the docks. Maya's stomach clenched. She remembered the light shattering above him, his scream cut short in the chaos. She hadn't checked if he survived the final barrage. For all she knew, Kane's men had finished him before they slipped away. He gave us a location, Maya said finally. Server Farm, Midtown, red doors. Code 7154. Torres's eyes flickered. That matches chatter we've intercepted. Kane's digital backbone. If those servers fall, his empire starts bleeding. Wade sat back, hope flickering in his eyes. Then we hit it. Tonight. Torres shook his head. Not tonight. We need a plan. The building's protected under layers of corporate shells, and officially it's a law firm. We move too fast. Kane spins it as an attack on legitimate business. Maya leaned forward. If we wait, he wipes the servers. You know how this game works. Evidence doesn't stay alive long. Torres studied her, his expression unreadable. You haven't changed. Still reckless. Still thinking one step ahead of yourself. Maya's voice turned cold. And you're still sitting on your hands while men like Kane get stronger. The tension was sharp enough to cut. Finally, Torres stood. I'll see what I can do. But if you move without me, you're on your own. And don't expect backup. He left without another word. Wade exhaled. So that's it? We just wait? Maya's eyes narrowed. No, we prepare. Hours later, after they were released under the guise of insufficient evidence, Maya and Wade stepped back into the neon glow of the city night. Cameras flashed as reporters swarmed, microphones shoved in their faces. Miss Williams, are you under investigation? Mr. Wade, did you fund the arms deals? Are you fugitives from justice? Maya pushed through them silently, Wade following close behind. They ducked into a waiting car and slammed the doors shut. The chaos muffled instantly. Wade broke the silence first. They're painting us as villains already. By tomorrow, the world will believe it. Maya stared out the window at the blur of city lights. Then tomorrow, we start breaking the story apart, brick by brick, server by server. Kane thinks he's tightening the noose. But I've been in tighter. Wade turned to her. And if we fail? She met his eyes, her voice like iron. Then we fail loud enough that the world can't ignore it. But I don't plan on failing. The car sped into the night, neon lights reflecting off the windshield. Somewhere in Midtown, behind red doors and layers of lies, the truth waited. And Maya Williams was ready to tear through every shadow to find it. For the first time in years, she felt the ghosts of her past standing not behind her, but beside her. Ramirez, the team she had lost. Every soldier betrayed by Kane's greed, they weren't reminders of failure anymore. They were fuel. The war wasn't just coming, it had already begun. And Maya was ready to carry it through to the bitter end. The night air in Midtown had a different weight. It wasn't the salt-laced breeze of the docks or the heavy humidity of Harlem. It was sharp, clinical, humming with the static of neon lights and the constant rhythm of passing cars. From the rooftop of a neighboring building, Maya crouched low, binoculars pressed to her eyes. Below, nestled between two towers of glass and steel, stood Kane's fortress disguised as a law firm. The building looked innocuous. Just another anonymous office in the city that never slept. But Maya's gaze locked on the detail that confirmed Voss hadn't lied. Two heavy red steel doors tucked at the back alley entrance. "Looks normal enough," Wade whispered beside her, his breath fogging in the cold. Maya lowered the binoculars, her expression grim. Normal is the disguise. Red doors. Just like he said. And if Kane risked letting Voss leak this, it means what's inside is critical. Wade peered down. "So what's the plan? We can't exactly knock and ask for a tour." Maya checked her watch. "We wait for the shift change. A place like this rotates security every 6 hours. That's when they'll be vulnerable. We slip in, get the data, and get out." "Simple," Wade muttered. "Too simple." She gave him a thin smile. "Nothing about Kane is simple. That's why you let me lead." They waited in silence, the city buzzing below. Wade shifted restlessly, unused to stillness. Maya, however, was stone, watching, calculating, her body still but her mind alive with possibilities. When two guards emerged from the alley to smoke, she nodded. Now, they descended the fire escape swiftly. Maya landed first, her boots silent against the pavement. Wade followed, less graceful, but quiet enough. They moved like shadows, slipping into the alley where the two guards lingered. Maya acted without hesitation, one sharp strike to the neck, a sweep of the leg, and the first man went down. Wade froze as the second reached for his radio, but Maya was faster, disarming him and pressing him to the wall until he slumped unconscious. "Still think you're in the boardroom?" she whispered to Wade as she dragged the bodies into the shadows. He scowled but said nothing. The red doors loomed before them, steel cold beneath her fingertips. She pulled a small device from her jacket, an electronic bypass kit. Kneeling, she pressed it to the keypad. Sparks hissed softly, the lock blinking before clicking open. Inside, the air was different, sterile, too clean, too quiet. They slipped through narrow halls lined with frosted glass and muted carpets. Every step echoed faintly, reminding them they were trespassers in a place that tolerated none. Maya's senses sharpened. Every corner could hide a guard. Every camera could be live. But she noticed something strange: no movement, no chatter, no signs of an active staff. It was too empty. "This doesn't feel right," Wade whispered. "It isn't," Maya replied, eyes narrowing. "Server farms don't run themselves. Someone's here." They reached a stairwell and descended. The walls grew colder, concrete replacing carpet. When they pushed through the final door, a low hum filled the air. Rows of servers stretched into the distance, blinking lights casting eerie glows. The digital heart of Kane's empire. Wade exhaled. "We found it." Maya moved quickly, pulling a flash drive from her pocket. She connected it to the nearest console, her fingers flying across the keys. Screens filled with files, encrypted but recognizable. Contracts, shipping logs, bank transactions, evidence, the kind that didn't just implicate Kane, it could topple everyone tied to him. Wade leaned closer, his eyes wide. "This is it. This is enough to burn him." Maya's lips pressed tight. "If we get out alive with it." The lights overhead flickered once, twice, then steadied. Maya froze. "What was that?" Wade whispered. Her stomach dropped. "He knows we're here." As if on cue, the far doors slammed open. Boots thundered in. A dozen armed men stormed into the server room, rifles raised, floodlights slicing through the aisles. "Hands up," one barked. Maya yanked the flash drive free and shoved it into Wade's hand. "Run." He blinked. "What?" "Run," she snapped. shoving him toward the far side of the servers. Gunfire erupted. Maya dove behind a rack, firing back with precision. One man fell, another stumbled, but they kept coming. Wade ducked low, clutching the drive like it was the last lifeline left. "Maya," he shouted, panic in his voice. "Keep moving," she barked. Her body moved like it remembered, her mind narrowing into focus. The world became rhythm. Fire, reload, move, strike. She clipped a man across the jaw with her pistol, stole his rifle, and swung it toward another. But for every man she dropped, two more surged forward. Kane hadn't underestimated her this time, he had overprepared. Wade reached the far door, slamming against it desperately. Locked, he pounded the keypad, his fingers fumbling. Behind him, Maya fought like fury. But the tide pressed closer. Then a voice cut through the chaos. Smooth, cold, familiar. "Enough." The gunfire ceased instantly. Maya froze, her chest heaving, rifle still raised. The men parted, and through them stepped Richard Kane himself. Immaculate suit. Silver hair slicked back. A smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Maya Williams," he said smoothly, his voice carrying across the hum of servers. The ghost the Bureau abandoned. And now, the woman who thinks she can burn an empire with a thumb drive. Her grip tightened on the rifle. "I don't think, I know." Kane chuckled softly, hands clasped behind his back. "Do you really? Look around you. Outnumbered, cornered. The moment you walked through those red doors, you walked into my design." Wade's voice cracked. "You set this up?" "Of course," Kane replied. "The location, the fixer, the code, all pieces on the board. And you, Maya, you played your role perfectly. Loud enough to distract me? Number predictable enough to follow?" "Yes." Maya's jaw clenched. "You're afraid. Otherwise you wouldn't be here in person." "No." Kane's smile faltered for just a moment before returning. "Not afraid. Curious. I wanted to see the woman who survived when others didn't. Ramirez. Wasn't it? Such a shame." Her chest burned, but she forced herself still. "Say his name again, and I promise you won't walk out." The room tightened. His men shifted nervously, fingers twitching on triggers. Kane studied her for a long moment, then nodded. "You have spirit, but spirit doesn't win wars. Power does. And power is on my side." "No." He gestured, and two guards seized Wade, wrenching the flash drive from his hand. "No." Maya surged forward, but rifles locked on her instantly. Kane held up a finger, halting her. "Not yet," he said softly. "Killing you now would be too easy. I want you alive, watching, as everything you try crumbles. That is how empires are protected, not by guns, but by breaking hope." He turned to leave, the flash drive gleaming in his palm. "Bring her. She's more useful alive than dead." Maya's fists clenched as guards closed in. For the first time since she returned to this fight, she felt the walls closing too tightly. Kane had won this round, and he knew it. But deep in her chest, under the rage and the weight of failure, the fire burned brighter. Kane could take the drive. He could stage his victory, but he couldn't break her resolve. Not yet. Not ever. As hands grabbed her arms and yanked her to her knees, Maya's mind whispered a promise. This isn't the end. This is the beginning. And Kane would live to regret leaving her alive. The ride was silent except for the hum of the armored van's engine. Maya sat with her wrists zip-tied, her ankles bound, her back pressed against cold steel. Two of Kane's men sat across from her, rifles resting casually across their laps. Wade was beside her, his eyes wide, his face pale but set with stubborn defiance. Every bump in the road jolted through the van, but Maya barely felt it. She was listening to the rhythm of the engine, the pattern of their turns, counting seconds between lights. She was building a map in her head. Wade leaned toward her, whispering, "You have a plan, right? Please tell me you have a plan." She didn't answer immediately. The guard closest to her smirked. "Don't waste your breath, billionaire. She's not Houdini. She's done." Maya finally looked at Wade. "The plan is to stay alive long enough to make another plan." Her voice was calm, clipped, but her eyes told him more. Watch. Wait. Don't panic. The van slowed, then turned sharply. After another minute, it stopped. The rear doors opened to reveal a dimly lit garage beneath a building. Kane's men dragged them out, rifles jabbing against their backs. They were led through sterile corridors into what looked like a high-tech holding facility. Glass walls, reinforced steel, cameras in every corner. It wasn't a police precinct. It was private, a cage built by money and fear. They shoved Maya into one cell, Wade into another across from her. The doors sealed with a hiss. Kane appeared moments later. His footsteps measured, his suit immaculate as always. He stood between their cells, his expression almost bored. "You've both made quite the mess," he said smoothly. "Breaking into my facility, interfering with my shipments, and worst of all, embarrassing me in public. That I cannot tolerate." There, Maya sat on the bench in her cell, her posture relaxed though her heart hammered in her chest. "Then why not kill us now? Why the show?" Kane's lips curved into a thin smile. "Because corpses are forgettable. But disgraced heroes? They live forever in the public's memory. By tomorrow, your faces will be everywhere. Not as saviors, but as traitors. I'll make sure of it." Wade gripped the bars of his cell. "You think people will believe you? They'll see through it." Kane turned, his gaze cold. "People believe what I tell them to believe. It's always been that way. That's why I'm here and Ramirez is not." The name was a knife in Maya's chest. She surged to her feet, fury flashing across her face. "You don't get to say his name." Kane tilted his head, studying her. "That's your weakness, Maya. Ghosts. You carry them like weights. But I carry nothing. That's why I win." He turned to leave, his voice echoing behind him. "Enjoy the view. You won't have it for long." The door closed, leaving the hum of the cameras as the only sound. Wade sank onto his bench, running his hands through his hair. "He's going to bury us." Maya paced her cell, her eyes scanning every corner. The glass walls, the floor, the ceiling. She wasn't seeing a cage. She was seeing exits. Weak points. Timing. Finally, she crouched near the edge of the glass. The frame had faint seams, too small for most to notice, but she had been trained to notice. "Not unbreakable," she murmured. Wade looked up. "What?" She met his gaze. "He built this to intimidate, not to withstand someone like me. Everything has a fault line." He swallowed hard. "Even if you get out, how do we get past a dozen guards?" Maya sat back on the bench, her voice lowering. "We won't be alone. Kane's arrogance is his weakness. He left us alive because he wants to gloat. That means someone on the outside still sees us as a threat. Rosa, Torres, maybe even Blake. If we make enough noise, someone will come." Wade exhaled. "That's not a plan. That's hope." Maya's eyes hardened. Sometimes hope is the plan. Hours passed. Guards rotated. Cameras hummed. The silence gnawed at them both. Finally, footsteps echoed again. Not Kane's this time, different cadence. The door opened, and Agent Torres stepped inside, escorted by 2 guards. Wade shot to his feet. "Torres, get us out of here." Torres raised a hand, his expression unreadable. "Easy. I'm here under Kane's invitation." Maya narrowed her eyes. "Invitation? That doesn't sound like backup." Torres stepped closer to her cell, his voice dropping so the guards couldn't hear. "I don't have long. He's using you as bait. The Bureau is watching, Congress is watching, half the world is watching. He wants to show you as pawns in his game." "Then stop him," Wade hissed. Torres shook his head slightly. "I can't, not directly. But I can leave doors unlocked. Cameras on loops. You understand?" Maya studied him for a long moment. "Why help us at all?" His jaw tightened. "Because I've been chasing Kane for years. And the Bureau's leashed. But you're not. If you get out, you can do what we can't." Before Maya could reply, Kane's voice rang out from the doorway. "Agent Torres, finished with your inspection?" Torres straightened, his mask slipping back into place. "All clear," he said crisply. He shot Maya a quick glance before leaving with the guards. The door shut. Silence fell again. Wade leaned toward her cell, whispering urgently, "Did you see that?" "He's on our side." Maya sank back onto her bench, her mind racing. "Or he's playing both sides. Doesn't matter. If he left a door open, we'll find it." That night, the facility quieted. The hum of cameras softened, then cut out for a brief 5 seconds before restarting. Maya's eyes snapped open. A loop. Just like Torres had promised, she stood, flexing her wrists against the zip ties until the plastic dug into her skin. Pain flared, but she didn't stop. Finally, with a sharp twist, the tie snapped. Her wrists were raw and bleeding, but free. Across from her, Wade gaped. "You, how?" She pressed a finger to her lips. Quiet. She moved to the glass wall, pressing her palms against the seams. One deep breath, then another. She kicked. Once. Twice. On the third, the frame gave with a metallic groan. Cracks spidered through the reinforced glass. Another kick, and it shattered outward with a crash. The alarms screamed instantly. Red lights flashed. Maya darted across the hall, slamming the release on Wade's cell. His door hissed open. "Move," she barked. He stumbled out, his face pale but determined. Together, they sprinted down the corridor, alarms blaring, boots pounding behind them. The facility roared to lifeguards shouting, doors slamming, sirens echoing. But Maya was already mapping the route Torres had hinted at. "Left," she snapped, dragging Wade with her. They turned into a service hall, the lights flickering. Ahead, a door stood slightly ajar. They burst through into the night. The city skyline blazed above them, the cold air hitting like freedom. But behind them, the storm hadn't ended, it had only begun. As they disappeared into the shadows, Maya's jaw set. Kane thought he had caged her. Instead, he had unleashed her. The war was no longer about survival. It was about retribution, and she was ready to burn everything he had built to the ground. The night swallowed them as soon as they cleared the compound. Sirens wailed faintly behind, alarms echoing like ghosts of the prison they had just escaped. Maya led Wade through a maze of alleys, her pace relentless, her eyes scanning every shadow. She didn't slow until the pounding of boots and the sweep of searchlights faded into the distance. They ducked into an abandoned subway entrance, the air damp with mildew, the tiled walls scarred by graffiti. Maya finally allowed herself to stop, pressing her palms against the cold wall as she caught her breath. Wade collapsed onto the steps, his chest heaving, sweat plastering his hair to his forehead. You broke glass with your legs like it was paper," he gasped, "and dragged me through a hornet's nest. I don't know if I should thank you or curse you." "Duh." Maya turned, her face hardened but alive with fire. "Thank me when Kane's empire is ash. Until then, keep moving." Wade wiped his mouth, then studied her. "Do you ever feel it? The fear?" Her eyes flickered, shadows crossing her expression. "Fear isn't the enemy. It's the reminder you're still alive. It sharpens you. But if you let it control you, you're already dead." Silence stretched between them, filled only by the distant rumble of trains above. Then Maya crouched, drawing lines in the grime on the floor with her finger. "Torres bought us a chance. That loop on the cameras that wasn't an accident. He wants us to keep pressing Kane, even if he won't admit it." Wade frowned. "Or he wants us to do the dirty work while he keeps his hands clean." Maya gave a dry laugh. "Probably both." She marked a crude map in the dirt, Midtown at its center. "The servers are compromised." Kane took the drive, but Voss gave us one more clue before the dock's red doors. Code 7154. That wasn't just for Midtown. It's his pattern. Kane builds redundancy. If one site burns, another hides the backup. Wade leaned closer. "So you think there's another facility?" "I don't think," Maya said firmly. "I know. Men like Kane always have insurance. We find the backup, we take it. This time, we don't let him walk away with the evidence." Wade rubbed his temples. "And how exactly do we do that? We don't even know where to look." Maya reached into her jacket, pulling out a scrap of paper she had snatched during their escape. It was creased and smudged, but legible, a maintenance log she had spotted on a guard's belt, dropped in the chaos. At the top was Kane's insignia. At the bottom, a location, Queens Industrial District. Her eyes burned with grim satisfaction. He left us the trail without realizing it. Queens is the backup. That's where we hit next. Wade let out a shaky laugh. You make it sound so simple. Just break into another fortress, dodge more bullets, grab the files, and walk out like nothing happened. Maya's lips curved into the faintest smile. That's exactly what we'll do. They stayed hidden in the subway until dawn. Maya barely closed her eyes, her mind replaying every step of the past hours. Ramirez's voice haunted her again. Finish the mission, no matter the cost. She clenched her fists until her nails dug into her palms. She had failed him once. She wouldn't fail again. By morning, they emerged into the waking city. The news was already buzzing, headlines flashing across kiosks. Maya's face plastered with words like fugitive, traitor, domestic terrorist. Kane's machine was working overtime. Wade pulled his hood low, but his expensive watch betrayed him. You need to lose that, Maya muttered, nodding at his wrist. He hesitated. This watch cost more than most people make in a year. Then it's a beacon. Take it off, or you're dead weight. For a moment, Wade's pride flared. Then he slipped it off and tossed it into a trash bin. You're turning me into a ghost. She gave him a sharp look. Good. Ghosts are harder to kill. By noon, they reached Rosa's apartment in Harlem. Rosa's eyes widened when she saw them, then softened into a mix of worry and pride. She ushered them inside, closing the blinds tight. Mija, Rosa whispered, touching Maya's cheek. You look like you've walked through hell. Maya gripped her hand gently. We're still walking. And it's not over. Rosa glanced at Wade, then back at Maya. You can't keep carrying the weight alone. Even the strongest shoulders break. Maya's throat tightened, but she said nothing. She busied herself cleaning the wound on her shoulder, ignoring the sting. Wade sat nearby, watching her with new eyes, not just as the woman who saved him, but as someone driven by something deeper, something unshakable. When the sun dipped low, Maya stood, reloaded her pistol, and tucked the maintenance log into her jacket. We moved tonight. Wade blinked. Tonight? We barely made it out last time. Maya's gaze was unyielding. Kane won't wait. Every second we stall, he erases evidence, buries trails, and tightens his grip. Queens is the next heartbeat of his empire. If we don't cut it now, we'll lose our chance. Rosa's eyes shimmered with tears. Maya, promise me something. Promise me you won't lose yourself chasing this man. For the first time in years, Maya let her guard slip. She embraced Rosa tightly, her voice barely a whisper. I promise, I'll finish what I started. That night, under a moonless sky, Maya and Wade crept into the Queens Industrial District. The warehouses loomed like silent giants, windows dark, fences crowned with barbed wire. Maya scanned the perimeter, her instincts alive. There, she whispered, pointing at a side building marked with the same insignia as the log. That's the backup. Wade swallowed hard. And what if this time, he's waiting again? Maya chambered a round into her pistol. Then we don't wait for him to spring the trap. We spring it first. They moved as shadows, slipping past cameras, cutting through fences, hearts pounding with the rhythm of war. Every step forward was fire in Maya's veins, every breath a vow. She had walked through cages, through lies, through the jaws of Kane's empire. And now, standing at the threshold of his hidden vault, she felt no fear, only purpose. Ready? She asked Wade. He nodded, surprising himself with the steadiness of his voice. With you? Always. Maya pressed her hand to the steel door. Behind it, the truth waited. The kind of truth that could topple empires or bury them both forever. Her lips curved into a razor's edge of a smile. Then let's burn him. The steel door creaked as Maya forced it open, every muscle taut with tension. The warehouse smelled of dust and oil, the stale air clinging to her lungs. Inside, rows of crates lined the floor, stacked high like walls in a labyrinth. Fluorescent lights flickered overhead, buzzing faintly. It looked abandoned, but Maya's instincts screamed otherwise. "Too quiet," she whispered. Wade slipped in behind her, his eyes darting around nervously. "Isn't that a good thing?" She shook her head, scanning the shadows. Number quiet means waiting. They moved cautiously down a narrow aisle. Maya's boots barely made a sound, but Wade's every step seemed to echo. She motioned for him to stay close, her hand hovering near her pistol. She felt the pulse in her temples, the sharp edge of adrenaline. At the far end of the warehouse, they found what they had come for. A reinforced room, its steel door painted with Kane's insignia. 2 red stripes marked the frame, another echo of Voss's code. "There," Maya said softly. "The server backup." Wade exhaled, almost relieved. "Then let's get it and get out before anyone knows." Maya crouched near the lock, pulling out her bypass kit. Sparks hissed as she worked the panel, the seconds dragging like hours. Finally, the door clicked. She pushed it open, revealing a chamber filled with servers stacked like monoliths, their blinking lights bathing the room in a pale glow. Wade's eyes widened. "My God, it's all here." Maya stepped inside, scanning quickly. The hum of machinery vibrated through the floor, alive with secrets. She found a terminal, slid a flash drive into the port, and began the transfer. Files poured in: contracts, bank transfers, lists of names, senators, CEOs, generals. Exactly what Blake had warned. "This is enough to burn him 10 times over," Wade whispered. Maya's jaw tightened. "If we live long enough to use it." The progress bar crawled forward. 10%, 20%. Every tick felt like a countdown to disaster. And then the lights overhead snapped off. The hum of the servers remained, but the room plunged into darkness. A red glow flickered to life, emergency lights bathing everything in blood. Maya's hand flew to her pistol. "He's here." "Ah." A voice echoed through the chamber, smooth and mocking. "You're consistent, Williams, always running straight into my arms." "Kane." From the shadows, his men emerged, dozens of them, rifles glinting in the red light. They formed a semicircle around the chamber, boxing them in. Kane stepped forward, immaculate even in the crimson glow, his smile sharp. "You surprise me, though," he said. "Most people would run after escaping my cage, but not you. No, you keep charging into the fire. Is it bravery, or just self-destruction?" Maya raised her gun, steady despite her racing heart. "Funny, I was going to ask you the same thing. For all your power, you keep stepping out of the shadows. That's not strength, it's arrogance." Kane chuckled. "Arrogance built empires, and it buries those who can't see past their own rage, like Ramirez." The name was acid in her blood. "Careful." Kane's smile widened. "Yes, Ramirez. The partner you couldn't save. The mission you botched. His blood is on your hands more than mine. And yet, here you are, chasing redemption in a city that doesn't even want you." Wade stepped forward, fury breaking his fear. "Enough. You hide behind money and lies, but people like her, people like Maya, are the only reason men like you don't devour the world unchecked." Kane's gaze flicked to Wade, amused. "And you? The billionaire who thinks morality can buy absolution. Do you really believe she can save you? She'll fail you like she failed him." Maya's finger hovered on the trigger. The weight of Ramirez's ghost pressed hard, but she forced her voice steady. "I may carry ghosts, Kane, but you create them. And that's why I'll end you." Kane's expression hardened. He nodded once, and rifles snapped up. Maya reacted instantly, firing the first shot. The chamber exploded with gunfire. She dove behind a server rack, sparks flying as bullets tore into the steel. Wade hit the ground, covering his head. The flash drive was still in the terminal, the progress bar crawling forward 40%. "Get it out," she shouted. Wade scrambled to the console, bullets slicing the air around him. He yanked the drive free, clutching it to his chest. Maya moved like a storm, dropping 2 guards with precise shots, disarming a third with a brutal elbow strike. The room filled with chaos, gunfire, shouts, the hiss of machinery damaged by stray bullets. Kane watched from the doorway, calm amid the storm. He didn't lift a weapon. He didn't need to. He was certain the machine he had built would crush her. But Maya was not a machine. She was fury and focus, a ghost reborn in fire. "Wade, move," she barked, grabbing his arm and dragging him toward the far exit. They fought their way through the line, Maya's gun running dry. She snatched a rifle from a fallen guard, firing bursts to clear their path. Wade stumbled, nearly falling, but she hauled him up, her grip iron. They burst into the night air, the Queen's skyline spread before them. Behind, alarms screamed, boots thundered in pursuit. "This way," Maya yanked Wade toward the chain-link fence at the edge of the lot. They scaled it, adrenaline fueling them, dropping hard on the other side. Shots rang out. A bullet grazed Wade's arm. He cried out but kept running. Maya returned fire, forcing the men to duck. They dove into the shadows of an alley, lungs burning, hearts pounding. Wade clutched the flash drive like a relic. We got it." Maya pressed him against the wall, her voice low, fierce. "Listen to me. This is the most dangerous thing in New York right now. Kane will burn the city to get it back. We can't trust the police, the press, the bureau. Not yet. We need to disappear." Wade's face was pale, his arm bleeding, but his eyes were steady. And then, she met his gaze, her own burning with fire. "Then we take him apart piece by piece. With this drive, we don't just fight him, we expose him. His empire rots in the light." For the first time, Wade smiled, grim but certain. "Then let's turn on the spotlight." Behind them, Kane's men fanned out into the night, their shouts echoing. But Maya and Wade were already gone, swallowed by the city's veins. As they vanished into the chaos of New York, Maya felt Ramirez's voice in her chest again, not a ghost of failure this time, but a whisper of resolve. Finish the mission, no matter the cost. And for the first time in years, she believed she could. The city was still buzzing from the night before. News vans clogged the streets, headlines screamed betrayal, and Maya's face glowed from every screen, painted as a terrorist who had infiltrated Wade Enterprises to orchestrate chaos. Kane's machine was relentless. Every channel, every paper carried his story, each twist more damning than the last. But in the basement of a shuttered bookstore in Brooklyn, Maya and Wade sat hunched over a battered laptop. The single bulb overhead flickered as the flash drive loaded, its secrets spilling across the screen. Bank transfers, hidden contracts, military shipments disguised as humanitarian aid. The names of politicians who had taken bribes. Generals who had signed off on weapons going missing. Kane's empire wasn't just a shadow network, it was the bloodstream of power itself. Wade leaned back, running a trembling hand over his face. This isn't just Kane. This is half the government. If we release this, the city won't just shake. The country will. Maya scrolled through the files, her expression unreadable. Inside, the weight pressed heavy. She had seen corruption before, smelled it on the battlefield. But this was deeper. Systemic. Woven into the fabric of the nation she once swore to defend. "They already call us traitors," she said quietly. "Might as well give them the truth to choke on." Wade studied her, his voice low. "Do you ever stop? Do you ever wonder if the fight is too big?" She looked at him, and for the first time, let him see the rawness in her eyes. "Every damn day. But Ramirez, he died because of this machine. Because I trusted it. I can't walk away again. Not while it's still breathing." Before Wade could answer, footsteps echoed above the shop. Heavy, controlled, not the scuffle of vagrants but the rhythm of trained boots. Maya snapped the laptop shut. "They found us." The back door burst open a moment later. Men in tactical gear stormed the basement, rifles raised. Wade ducked instinctively, shielding the laptop with his body. Maya reacted faster, grabbing the nearest shelf and toppling it, books spilling like an avalanche. She fired 2 quick shots, forcing the men to dive for cover. "Move!" she barked, dragging Wade toward the cellar door. They burst into the alley, the night cold against their skin. Shouts followed, boots pounding behind. Maya pulled Wade through a maze of trash-strewn streets, every turn a gamble. Bullets sparked against brick, ricocheting into the darkness. A black SUV screeched around the corner, cutting them off. From inside stepped Richard Kane, calm, composed, his smile infuriatingly intact. "You've run long enough, Williams," he said. his voice carrying through the chaos. "Hand over the drive, and maybe I'll let your billionaire live to sign over what's left of his fortune." Maya planted herself between Kane and Wade, pistol raised. "You should have killed me when you had the chance." Kane's eyes narrowed. "Number, I want you alive. I want you to see how powerless you are. That's the punishment." The standoff hung in the air, sharp as glass. Then, from the opposite end of the alley, a new voice rang out. "Drop your weapons." Zeh. Agent Torres stepped forward, flanked by a small unit of federal agents. Their rifles leveled at Kane's men, their badges gleaming in the dim light. For once, the balance tilted. Kane's smile faltered, but only slightly. "Ah, Torres, the loyal hound. Do you really think you can bite the hand that feeds your bureau?" Torres's jaw clenched. "Maybe, but tonight, the leash is off." Chaos erupted. Gunfire thundered, the alley filling with smoke and shouts. Maya shoved Wade toward cover, returning fire with deadly precision. She dropped 2 of Kane's men, then rolled behind a dumpster as bullets tore through metal. Torres's agents pressed forward, their training cutting through Kane's mercenaries, but Kane himself slipped through the storm, moving toward his SUV. Maya saw him. And in that moment, everything narrowed. The sounds, the bullets, even her own heartbeat. Ramirez's voice echoed in her chest. "Finish the mission, no matter the cost." She surged forward, slamming into Kane before he reached the car. They crashed against the hood, his pistol skittering across the pavement. His fist cracked against her jaw, pain exploding white, but she gripped his lapel, forcing him back. "You built this," she hissed, her knee driving into his ribs. "Every ghost, every grave, this is you." Kane snarled, shoving her off, grabbing for a knife at his belt. "And every grave is fuel for power. You can kill me, Williams, but the machine lives on." The blade slashed, grazing her arm. She caught his wrist, twisted, and with a sharp crack, the knife clattered to the ground. Their eyes locked, hers burning with fury, his with cold certainty. "This ends now," she said, and she drove her fist into his throat. Kane staggered, choking. And before he could recover, Torres's men swarmed him, forcing him to the ground, cuffs snapping shut around his wrists. The alley fell into silence, broken only by Kane's ragged breath and the distant wail of approaching sirens. Maya stood over him, chest heaving, blood streaking her face. For a long moment, she just stared. This was the man who had haunted her for years, who had torn open every wound she carried. Now he was on the ground, shackled, no longer untouchable. Torres approached, his eyes hard. "We'll take it from here." Maya's grip on her pistol tightened. For one fleeting second, the thought of ending Kane for good burned hot. One shot, that's all it would take. But then Ramirez's voice returned not in anger, but in calm. "Don't become what you fight." Her hand lowered. She turned away. Wade stepped beside her, still clutching the laptop. His voice was quiet, but steady. "You did it." She shook her head. "Number, we did it. And it's not over." Torres glanced at the flash drive. "This evidence will topple him and everyone he bought, but it's going to tear this city apart first." Maya's gaze rose to the skyline, where dawn was just beginning to break. Maybe it needs to. Maybe that's the only way something better can grow from the ashes. The sirens grew louder, the city waking to the news of Kane's fall. Reporters would swarm, politicians would scramble, and the machine would fight to protect itself. But tonight, a fault line had cracked wide open. As Torres's men dragged Kane into the waiting van, Maya and Wade stood together, battered but unbroken. "Where do we go now?" Wade asked softly. Maya's lips curved into a faint, weary smile. "Wherever the fight takes us." The first light of dawn spilled over the city, painting the streets gold. For the first time in years, Maya felt something beyond rage and grief. She felt the fire of hope. Ramirez's ghost was still there, but quieter now, not a burden, but a companion. The war wasn't finished, but Maya Williams was ready. And as the city braced for the storm of truth, she stepped into the light, carrying justice, not as a shield, but as a flame. The story of Maya Williams reminds us that true justice is never easy, and courage is not the absence of fear but the will to stand against it. Power built on lies may control the headlines, but truth endures. Even when the odds seem impossible, one person's resolve can ignite change, and from the ashes of corruption, hope can rise again.